Yahoo Fantasy Football, the Tucson Tackle Dummies League, has completed Week 9 in the NFL season. This is your Week 9 quick take as we bounce around the league and talk about the 8 matchups that made up the slate in Week 9 action. The two storylines from this week. First off, the top 2 matchups that we predicted as of last week wound up being the 2 closest games when all was said and done. We'll get to those in just a moment. And then the big story around the league, a lot of teams are buzzing about the fact that numerous squads did not set their lineups this week. There are a lot of blowouts, and that trend has been continuing over the last few weeks and does not appear to be getting any better. A lot of teams do not appear to be managing their squads, not putting players in, not leaving players in on a bye. Some squads, like we'll talk about later on in the video here, shots especially, making bizarre roster moves and really destroying the competitive balance in the league. So very upsetting situation, unfortunately, with some owners who are not taking things very seriously. But let's get to some of the action in the actual games themselves. The Quick Mart game of the week. Jammed Toe knocks off AZ Chargers in a crucial battle, 114.66 to 112.34 for Jam Toe. 7-2 in the league now, tops overall, following picking up a bounce-back victory following a loss to the number 2 team in the league, Pain Trains, last week. For AZ Chargers, the loss puts this team 5-4, sitting 10th overall and 2 games out of the division lead in the Toro division. For Toe, Toe won the offensive side, held off a really strong defensive performance by AZ Chargers this week to manage a very close victory by less than 3 points. Both teams had just 4 players beat projections on offense. For Toe, quarterback is one of the battles that Toe was able to win. Drew Brees outdueled Josh Freeman in a tight one, 17.12 to 16.16. Toe then also had a team high at running back from Brandon Jacobs with 19.8. For AZ Chargers, just 16.88 from 3 running backs, including San Diego's duo Darren Sproles and Mike Tolbert, who combined for just 9.08. Toe had to deal with Austin Collie getting injured. 0.15 points out of Collie before a concussion took him out of the game, and will have him out next week as well. Toe also entered the matchup leading the league in defensive scoring, averaging just short of 48 points per game on defense. This week, Toe only scored 35 on defense and could not have picked a worse time to score under the average, as AZ Chargers put up 52.5 on defense this week, including 28 from the Green Bay defense. In the team defensive category alone, the Green Bay defense got 28 for AZ Chargers. Jam Toe had the New England defense for just 1 point. For AZ Chargers, though, only 2 defensive slots beat projections, and Chargers still managed to actually win the defensive battle. And Toe actually had 3 players beat projections when all was said and done on the defensive side, but a big victory on the defensive side of the ball for AZ Chargers still winds up coming short in the overall scoring. In the other close matchup of the week, Bucknuts knocked off DM2 Carp, 116.69 to 106.58. Bucknuts now 6-3, winner of 3 straight, and is now a game out of first still in the Toro division. For Carp, 5-4 overall, a crucial loss, sitting 9th now in the overall standings and 2 out of the division lead in the Caballero division. Bucknuts used an explosive offense this week to overcome a very suspect defense. 5 players on offense beat projections for Bucknuts. Buck scored 105.69 on offense, even leaving the tight end slot empty. Bucknuts had a game-high 32.7 out of Arian Foster. Buck also had 3 wide receivers combined for 46.83 points. That included Mike Wallace, who scored 18.25 points on Monday night to secure the victory in a close one. Carp had very disappointing performances on offense. Only 2 players on offense beat projections, and very low scores from the Houston Texans duo of Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson, and Anquan Bolden wound up just 3.3 points as well. Carp also had a kicker get injured. Jason Hansen scored just 2 points for the Detroit Lions before he wound up injured and out of the game. Carp did keep things close thanks to a really strong defensive performance. The New Orleans team defense led the way with 21 points on the defensive side of the ball, Bucknuts had just 11 points total on defense, including a -2 from the Seattle team defense, linebacker on a bye, and no players meeting projections. Also in action this week, the Pain Trains knocked off Herbie TG 112.28 to 92.45. For Pain, the win 7-2, now riding a 6-game winning streak, having not yet lost an intra-division play. Herbie, now 2-7 on the opposite end of the spectrum, sits 14th, 3 games out of the final playoff spot. If the playoffs were to start today, riding a 4-game losing streak. For Pain, spreading the wealth across the board while Herbie lacked firepower pretty much everywhere. Pain had 7 players meet or exceed projections, while Herbie had just 5 players beat projections and only 2 of those on offense. Pain had a game-high 23.5 from quarterback Eli Manning, also 12.45 from Larry Fitzgerald, and just 8.08 from the other 2 wide receivers that Pain started. Pain also had 9.85, a decent score out of Fred Jackson, but only 0.1 out of Ricky Williams, the other running back in the lineup. For Herbie, a team-high 17.06 out of Tom Brady, but 3 wide receivers combined for 16.54 points. That's terrible. And 2 running backs combined for just 8.7 points. For Herbie, the quarterback and kicker combined for 27.06 points. The 3 wide receivers, the 2 running backs, and the tight end, so 6 players, combined for just 27.89 points. So the offense was not getting it done this week. On the defensive side, Pain won the defensive battle 39.5 to 37.5 in a tight one. Linebacker Gerard Mayo for Pain Trains had 10.5. Herbie countered that with a defensive back performance. Richard Marshall had 12 points this week, but Herbie probably wound up losing defense on the fact that they left their one of their DL slots empty. Also in action, Is This the CFL knocked off Sixburg 133.7 to 106.15. CFL with the win, 5-4 overall, holding the final playoff spot if things were to start today with a 3-game winning streak, while Sixburg 5-4 on a 3-game losing streak and still leading the Aztec division by 2 games. CFL had 2 huge performances, helped to overcome the fact that the opponent also had a spotty roster this week, allowing CFL to walk away the victor. CFL had a game-high 27.4 out of Adrian Peterson and 26.1 out of quarterback Phillip Rivers. Rivers had 26.1 and still barely won the quarterback battle as Sixburg's Matthew Stafford returned to action this week, picked up 24.7 points before promptly being hurt again and possibly lost for the season. CFL, in kind of a quirky situation, had a disappointing 5.6 from Wes Welker at wide receiver, one of those points being a point after touchdown, as Welker had to go in and be backup kicker to Stephen Gostkowski for the New England Patriots. Ironically enough, Sixburg owns Gostkowski, so the 1-point PAT from Wes Welker wound up taking points away that Sixburg would have otherwise scored. The ugly kicker battle as a result of that situation led to CFL beating Berg at kicker 2-1, with Robbie Gould managing just 2 points and Stephen Gostkowski picking up just 1 before going down. CFL had a 2 tight end set this week, combined for a disappointing 10.35. Sixburg won the offensive battle, ironically, 90.35 to 84.2, despite the fact that Sixburg had a quarterback get injured after scoring a team-high 24.7, had a kicker get injured after scoring just 1 point, had a running back, Frank Gore, on a bye, and the other 2 running backs combined for 24.95 points. And then Hakeem Nicks chipped in 20.3 at wide receiver before picking up a minor injury and going straight to the bench. So Sixburg overcame all those situations to actually win the offensive battle, but then CFL dominated defense, 49.5 to 15.8. Sixburg had 1 defensive slot beat projections, also had a DL on a bye. CFL had 16.5 from linebacker Clay Matthews and 18 points from 2 defensive backs. Delicious Pancakes knocked off the depleted Diabetes, 111.54 to 82.07. Pancakes with the win leads the Wildcat division still on points, 6-3 overall with a 3-game winning streak. Diabetes 2-7, sitting 15th. The only wins this team has: Week 1 against Dirty Boys, the worst team in the league, and a win against Bucknuts during the ownership transfer. Pancakes avoided the upset thanks to the opponent's poor management. Diabetes had a game-high 19.75 out of running back Rashard Mendenhall. The other running back on the Diabetes roster was injured. Diabetes had Jay Cutler. Pancakes had Joe Flacco. And Cutler actually won this battle 19.42 to 19.34. So Diabetes actually won the QB battle. Pancakes outscored Diabetes, though, at wide receiver 37.2 to 3.55. Diabetes started the injured Sidney Rice, had just 1.55 out of Calvin Johnson, and just 2 points from Pierre Garcon. So 3 wide receivers were unable to match what Pancakes did at wide receiver. Pancakes was also without Antonio Gates, who was out due to an injury. David Thomas wound up coming in, scoring just 5.5 points. And Beanie Wells was started for Pancakes at running back, negative 0.2. And Diabetes still not able to overcome these circumstances. Diabetes left 2 individual defensive players in on the roster on a bye. In a close defensive battle, that Pancakes wound up winning 34 to 26.5. In blowout action, Big Ben's Revenge knocked off Polack's 107.56 to 76.16. Big Ben with the win, 6-3, keeps pace with Delicious Pancakes in record and is trying to keep pace in points as well. Best non-division leader in the league, number 5 seed, if the playoffs were to start today. Polack's 3-6 overall in 3 straight weeks has failed to gain any ground on Sixburg in that terrible Aztec division. Big Ben also avoids an upset, basically, by playing a team with poor management. Polack's had 3 players on a bye, including quarterback Donovan McNabb and an injured running back, Pierre Thomas, who's been in the lineup for quite some time. Big Ben had a game-high 22.7 out of Michael Turner. 3 more players on offense in double digits, Jamal Charles, Percy Harvin, and Matt Ryan. Polack's had 3 players in double digits total. A team-high 13.55 out of Dwayne Bowe, and a surprising 12.11 out of Larod Stevens Howling, who wound up returning a kick for a touchdown in the Cardinals game. In other blowout action, Greek Thunderball defeats Shots in a rather uncompetitive matchup, 97.71 to 31.45. Greek with the win, 5-4, still last place in the Toro division, but keeps pace in a very competitive division with the victory. Shots now 2-7, loser of 4 straight. Shots made bizarre lineup decisions this week, benching a bunch of players but not putting new players in their place. So Shots wound up starting a lineup full of holes. Greek ran up the score late, scoring some really high point totals in the Sunday night and Monday night games, as this one was a really low score until then. Shots had just 4 players earn points this week, left 2 running backs, a wide receiver, and 2 defensive backs empty, had Tony Romo and Owen Daniels and a DL slot injured, and had Randy Moss and a linebacker on a bye. The team high this week came from kicker David Akers, who scored 15 points, ironically beating Greek's kicker by 14 points, as Ryan Lundell for Greek Thunderball managed just a point. Greek had a game-high 29.6 from Terrell Owens, and then 27.66 from Aaron Rodgers. If you take T.O. and Rodgers' scores off the board, Greek only scored 40.45 points otherwise. Greek had a 2 tight end set that failed miserably this week, 6.05 points total, and 2 running backs combined for just 3.85. Greek also left the linebacker slot empty and left an injured DB in the lineup. Greek did still wind up winning defense despite that, 18.5 to 9.5. And in the biggest blowout possibly in league history, didn't check on it, but Inglorious Bear Jew knocks off my Dirty Boys 173.67 to 41.3. Dirty Boys with the loss, 1-8, dead last. Lone win was a forfeit, as we mentioned before. Inglorious Bear Jew with the win, 5-4, second highest scoring team in the league overall now, but ranked 7th in the standings, so this team is dangerous. Bad management met offensive onslaught in this one. Bear Jew had the high score of the week, won by over 132 points. Dirty had scores with just 6 players on the roster. A QB, a wide receiver, a kicker, and the team defense were all on a bye. 4 of the 5 individual defensive players were injured or scored no points. Bear Jew had 9 players beat projections, including a game-high 32.75 out of Peyton Hillis and 57.1 total out of the 3 running backs in the lineup. Bear Jew also then won the defensive battle 42-2. As we mentioned, Dirty did not start very many players that could actually score points. So looking ahead to Week 10 action, the first game in the NFL schedule this week, on the NFL schedule, is Thursday. So if you own any Baltimore Ravens or Atlanta Falcons, you're going to want to make sure you set your lineups early because they will be in action on Thursday. Your main matchups next week, Pain Trains will take on DM2 Carp in a big battle, and Jam Toe will take on Greek Thunderball. The rest of the matchups are probably going to wind up blowouts again. Glorious Bear Jew will take on Sixburg. CFL is going to take on Polax. AZ Chargers will face off with Herbie. Delicious Pancakes will take on Dead Last, My Dirty Boys. Big Ben's Revenge will take on Diabetes, and Bucknuts will face off with number 14th place Shots. So we'll hope to see you back next week for a recap from Week 10 in the Tucson Tackle Dummies League.